Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News for Saturday Night Livestream. I am pre-recording this because tonight my daughter is going to be performing, and I need to be there to see my little girl on stage. Of course, she's an adult now, she's 18, but whatever, I still got to be there. She is beautiful, she's very talented, and I'm very proud to call her my daughter. Now, tonight we're going to be hearing from two people. First of all, Joanna Chestnut. She's an author, and she's written a book called Liberals Lied to Me. Very, very good. It's an excellent way for people to kind of check into the fact that they have been lied to by liberals. You can get it on Amazon. Everything is going to be below in the pinned comment. And then next, we've got a conversation between myself and Craig Mason of Craig Mason's Reasonable Conversation channel. We're going to be discussing some of the latest drops, where we think we're going to be going in 2020, and of course, what Craig has been doing over the course of the last year. It's been a while since we've had him on the program, so I am very excited to have him back. So please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor. Hey guys, I spoke with My Patriot Supply the other day, and we were talking about how people prepared from like 2010 to 2016 versus how they're preparing now. And they said they noticed it seemed like a lot of people just stopped preparing when the last occupant of the White House left, as if everything that was being prepared for was just having to do with either him or HRC. But if you do think that, then you're wrong. It's so much more than that. Just imagine the deep state. Imagine what they're willing to do to get their power back. You know, destroying the Constitution, subverting due process, destroying people who are innocent and who've done nothing wrong. Just imagine what's going to happen if they come back into power. Now, I'm not saying I think that's likely. I don't think it is. But personally, I'd rather not be caught off guard. We prepare because the threats we face are bigger than any one single thing. And because of that fact, I've partnered again with My Patriot Supply, and I think that you guys should too. So right now, you can save $70 on a 2-week food kit, and you'll get guaranteed 2-day delivery. And it's at preparewithredpill78.com. Now, the offer won't last, but the good news is that My Patriot Supply will. And don't think you can't afford to not prepare, because they have a lot of different payment options and plans to fit any budget, so you don't have to wait. Get ahead of the chaos today and go to preparewithredpill78.com. That's preparewithredpill78.com. And remember, when you support My Patriot Supply, you support this channel. All right, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Joining me today is my friend, author Joanna Chestnut. She is the author of Liberals Lied to Me, among other things. But Joanna, how are you today?
I'm doing real good. How are you?
I'm doing real well. Thank you very much. I don't know if you saw on the show, but I have been without a bathroom. My daughter and I have been without a bathroom for the last 3 months. And yesterday, finally, it was complete. So quite literally, like a half hour ago is when I took my very first shower in my brand new bathroom. And I feel excellent. It's
a long time to go without a bath.
It's a real long time. I was going back and forth to my mom's, but, you know, waking up in your own home, taking a shower, there's something to say for it.
Absolutely.
Well, Joanna, gathering from the book, it looks like you used to be a liberal, used to consider yourself a liberal, and throughout this journey that you've taken, you came to, become a bit of a conservative and realize just how much we've been lied to throughout our lives. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Well, my journey actually started as I was raising 5 special needs children. My adopted 5 siblings. And I got more and more conservative, as they were growing up. I found myself, I just found that they really needed to know what high moral standards were. They needed discipline, they needed structure and routine. And so I was becoming more conservative, even before 2013. But as we arrived into 2013, that's when my transformation really begun. And I just started questioning things, and it lasted, there was a chink in the armor here, a question, a raised eyebrow there. And then around the 2016 election is when I really started doing a lot of research. And, I had supported Obama. I voted for him twice. I had supported Hillary for that election. But the more I looked into it, the more I just, I actually was horrified at the things I found. And so I was a Bernie Sanders supporter, actually, in the 2016 election. I actually wrote him in Washington State, where I was living at the time, wrote him in on my ballot. And, you know, as far as Donald Trump went, I was fascinated by him. You know, I didn't know too much about him. I knew he was on The Apprentice, and, you know, he was a billionaire in New York and a real estate developer, but didn't know too much about him other than that. And I was really fascinated watching his campaign rallies. And I was just so relieved when he won and Hillary didn't.
Yeah, many of us were.
And so that's kind of my transformation. And it's the reason for me writing the book as well, The Liberals Lied to Me, because I just wanted to get my story out there about what happened to me, you know, what I learned, and in hopes that maybe my fellow Democrats would read my book and understand what my journey was, and maybe even think about joining me. So
I would imagine that your liberal perspective was probably a condition of the fact that you're a child of the 60s, kind of growing up in like a very liberal time. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And I had my first child was born in 1972. And yes, I was in college, you know, I was in college, and we had sit-ins against the war. And I loved the anti-war ideology of the left. I loved a lot of things about what they were saying. But
it's a lot of lip service, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because, you know, what I found that happened was they just went too far in the opposite direction, you know, and they became radicalized.
They did. And now they're pro-war. How ironic is that?
It's like it's a mirror image almost.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, they actually promote violence and free speech. You know, I was a big advocate of free speech. Well, you know, they say they believe in diversity. The only diversity they don't believe in is diversity of ideas, diversity of viewpoints.
Yeah.
You know, so that's out the window. Anyway, I just got completely disillusioned.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to write the book.
I can understand. I think a lot of people, you know, kind of felt the same way that you did, and are starting to feel that way even more and more now if they haven't come around to understanding the way things really work. Now, you said that it was, you kind of had a series of chinks in the armor. Can you remember maybe what the first big chink was, you know, what it was that you looked at and you said, now that's not right. I certainly have been told something else.
I do. During the 2016 campaign, during the debates, I remember Bernie Sanders asked Hillary Clinton to release the speeches she made on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And she said something like, well, no, I'm not going to release those, or I'll release those when you release yours, or when everybody else releases theirs. That was the first time I thought, well, wait a minute, what is she hiding there? You know, why wouldn't she just say, oh, okay, you know, here they are. I promote, you know, liberal ideology, and this is my campaign, and, you know, and just, you know, be done with it. But so that was really a big question for me. You know, why aren't you releasing those speeches? What's in them?
So after that point, what did you start looking into?
What did I start looking into?
Yeah. What did you start researching, trying to find the truth?
Yeah, most independent civilian journalists. I got away from the mainstream media. You know, I'm pretty good on the internet, so I was researching and listening to journalists who didn't have a monetary reason for being online. And one of the first people who really changed my mind completely was Robert David Steele. I don't know if you know of him. He's a case agent. He was a former case agent with the CIA. And he started saying things like, and now this guy, I was impressed how intelligent he was. And then he started saying, like, Donald J. Trump could be the best president we've ever had in our lives. And I thought, wow, if this guy who's so smart and has such experience is saying that, maybe I should look into it. and that's when I, completely started tuning out of the Democratic Party.
That's good. The area that you were living in, Washington, was that fairly liberal? Did it have a mixture of political ideas?
Oh, yeah. Very, very left-leaning. I went to 2 rallies, Bernie Sanders rallies, very, very well attended. Yeah. Right. And they still are, unfortunately. And homelessness is a big problem.
Drug use, too, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, did you have an experience of coming out publicly as someone who was even considering supporting President Trump? Or did you keep it to yourself?
I kind of kept it to myself. I re-registered when I moved. I moved in 2017 to Las Vegas Valley. I re-registered my parties, and I became an independent voter.
Okay.
So, but no, not publicly, except for my book.
Okay. And how about your family? Did you have any family that it was necessary to speak to about this?
I have my older brother is very conservative, and he was also, I should have mentioned, he was a big part of me.
Oh, good.
Moving towards conservatism, because I love my brother and he's very smart. He was a Vietnam veteran. I started listening to him. I was always at odds with him, all through our lives, our adult lives. We were at odds with each other. I started listening a little more closely, and things he was saying made sense to me.
How about the job that President Trump was doing? What did you think about that?
Well, I thought better and better of him as time went on. Mm-hmm. His accomplishments, the things he would say. Yeah, he's bold, he's brash, he's very plain spoken, but I grew to like that.
Yeah.
Such a difference.
I mean,
other family members are very liberal.
Has it caused any friction with your family?
We just have, and I have a best friend who's also been dyed in the wool liberal. Unfortunately, we just don't speak. We don't. That's a whole part of our relationship that's gone. Because we used to talk politics all the time, and agree, and we were together. But now that's all gone, and it's taken. I feel like it's taken away from the relationship, because when you have a whole section of things you can't talk about, then what's left? And we still love each other, and we talk about family and small talk, and but it's unfortunate, and it makes me sad. Definitely. It makes me sad.
Definitely. Well, so take us through the book. How did you decide to write this book? What happened there?
I was just motivated. I was motivated to tell my story. Mm-hmm. I wanted to tell about my transformation. And my hope is that others will read it and will get a sense of hope from my book, that maybe things could be different. The thing about the liberals that I really realized, and what took me far away from them now, is when you're a liberal, you're hopeless. First of all, you are a victim. You're a permanent victim. And, as a woman, you're a victim of the male oppressor. Mm-hmm. But that never changes. How can that change? And you're taught to hate men, which, I have 6 grandsons, and I have, one son who's love of my life. How could I hate men? Mm-hmm. And so there's that. And what about racism? Intrinsically, especially as a white person, you're a racist. Mm-hmm. It's systemic, and you can't ever get away from it. And blacks are told that you hate them, that white people hate them, and that's not true. And I found out that that's not true at all. And the longer I've been a conservative, the more I realize conservatives really they accept anyone they don't look at the skin color as much, I don't think. We look at more character.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, that, like I say, I want to bring some hope and some optimism, and maybe, convince people that once you turn away from the liberal thought process, you've become a lot more clear thinking, more logical thinking,
Yeah. We make decisions based on facts, not feelings.
Exactly. Because when you make that decisions based on feelings, there's no base there, and so, you're going to be steered wrong, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So are those the biggest liberal lies that you think have been hoisted upon us, the feminism and racism? Is there anything else that you really saw that caught your attention that you wanted to go over?
Well, in my first chapter, I talk about 10 lies, and then I explain, I restate each lie, and then tell my version of why that's not true and what I have come to believe is true. One of the biggest ones, I think, is I think number 9, which is that liberals implied that single motherhood was heroic and the way to the future. Children don't really need a father in the home, or at all for that matter. And our whole society has suffered because of that lie. And I go on to cite some research about children in fatherless homes versus children in two-parent homes. The truth is that men have an irreplaceable role to play in their children's lives. The current epidemic of fatherless families has taken a grim toll on the children in the form of social, emotional, academic, criminal, and suicidal issues. So I go on to explain all of that in that question, but that's one of the big ones for me.
Excellent. It's a stark realization, when you look at just how much impact the last 40, 50 years have had on society, moving closer and closer to a socialist system, further away from any type of like right or reason. I mean, it's all about what we're being told, what we're told to believe. We're not supposed to look into these things. So the fact that you did, and then you can back it up with actual evidence, it's a good thing to have. So it's kind of like a primer for people who are looking to move into another phase in their life.
And I also tried to give a history of different things, like, for example, social justice warriors. Mm-hmm. I wasn't certain about what that was or who they were. So I explained that in my book, and where that originated. And I do that with a lot of different terms, where like toxic masculinity, where did that originate, and why do we have that? The Me Too movement, not very many people know that was the brainchild of Alyssa Milano, mm-hmm. One of the Hollywood elites. And so I try to go into the history of everything just to explain, and also I was educating myself as I went along, where did this come from? What's the history of this? Why do we have this, And so, and then one of my other most important ideas in the book, I think, is the war on boys and men. And I explain that in my chapter 2. It's called Feminism Gone Wrong. Mm-hmm. And, way back in 2001, Christina Hoff Sommers was pointing out that girls are the gold standard in our schools. Girls are able to sit and concentrate for long periods of time. They don't fidget like boys do. They are cooperative and easy to teach. Boys, on the other hand, are considered defective girls, mm-hmm. and problem students. Boys score lower on tests than girls and generally do not fare well academically. And this has been going on for years and years, and it's just gotten worse and worse until, let me just read one small story about a third grader in Southern California named Justin. He loved science fiction, pirates, and battles. Recently, an alarmed teacher summoned his parents to school to discuss a picture the boy had drawn of a sword fight that included several decapitated heads. The teacher expressed grave concerns about Justin's values. The boy's father was astonished, not by his son's drawing, which was to him just typical boy stuff, but by the teacher's overwrought and female-centered reaction. If boys are constantly subject to disapproval for their interests and enthusiasms, they're likely to become disengaged and lag even further behind. Our schools need to work with, not against, the kinetic imagination of boys. And it's so true in a lot of other instances, like the shortening of recess, for example. Recess is sometimes non-existent in some elementary schools. And boys especially, they need to get out there, run around, play, release energy, and then they can come back and maybe sit still for a little bit longer.
Exactly. I'm a 41-year-old man and I still fidget, but I took issue with the idea that boys generally fare poorly academically. I mean, that's such a blanket statement, I mean, I might not have been good in physics, but I mean, like, I fared well academically if you want to look at my entire school career, right. From elementary up to grad school. And so for her to dismiss half of the population of the United States, and its students, it's such an ignorant statement. I mean, like, you can draw, some conclusions about, men and women, boys and girls, and their behaviors. But to just make a blanket, like, boys are dumber than girls. That's what she said. That's what it sounds like.
Well, that's really not what she's saying.
Well,
not at all. What she's saying is that they don't score as well. They don't fare as well because there is a war on boys and because they're treated so differently than girls. For example, boys whose eyes glaze over when instructed to read Little House on the Prairie.
Who wants to read that?
They're riveted with the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh yeah, the world's largest earthworm, stuff like that. I love it.
And Christina Hoff Summers, she has 4 different suggestions how we can, help boys to do even better than they're doing now. One of them is turn boys into readers, and inspire the male imagination. Get rid of the zero tolerance approaches for disciplining boys. Because here's another one. Josh Welsh, age 7. Was recently sent home from his Maryland school for nibbling off the edges of a strawberry Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun.
Yes.
Josh, like many other boys, punished for violating zero tolerance policy, was guilty of nothing more than being a typical 7-year-old boy. So see, it relates to self-esteem.
Yeah.
If you're always put down, for creative things that you do, eventually you're going to just shut down.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's what. And then the last thing is to bring back recess.
Recess is super important.
Super important.
Yeah.
And you probably had a lot of recess because you're a little bit older.
Yes.
But since the 1970s, school children have lost almost 50% of their unstructured outdoor playtime. Much-loved games like dodgeball, Red Rover, and even tag have all been banished from schoolyards. They're too damaging to self-esteem or too violent being the usual excuse. Boys need to work off their energy. They need to be free to play games that they enjoy. Keeping them cooped up and inside all day will not help them learn. As our schools become more feeling-centered, more competition-free, more sedentary, and move further away from the needs of boys. So,
well,
I agree.
When you look at what's happening in the world, the way that liberals are pushing towards this kind of homogenization of genders, it's almost like they just want to turn everybody into girls anyways. I mean,
right, or to a gender fluid.
Yes,
person,
or to some type of gender fluidity. Yeah. But I mean, even then, I mean, I don't see them pushing to make girls more masculine, really. It seems like they're pushing to make boys more feminine. And, I mean, they don't say that the world can do without girls. I mean, but they often say that, women could survive without men.
Without men. Well, it all started because of violence. Mm-hmm. And another person that I do quote in my book is, she calls herself the conservative millennial, Allie Stuckey. She says, rape, murder, war. They all have one thing in common: men. Aggression, violence, ambition, unchecked by conscience. All the stuff of toxic masculinity, right? And the solution is obvious. Make men less toxic. Make men less masculine. Make men more like women. That's the solution, supposedly. But Allie says, I'm here to tell you that this way of thinking is not only wrong, it's dangerous. And here's why. When you try to make men more like women, you don't get less toxic masculinity. What you get is more. You get hyper masculinity. The growing problem today isn't that men are too masculine. It's that they're not masculine enough. When men actually embrace their masculinity in a way that is healthy and productive, they are leaders, warriors, and heroes. When they deny their masculinity, they run away from responsibilities, leaving destruction and despair in their wake. The consequences can be seen everywhere.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. If you as a man are not allowed to be a man, then bad things are going to happen, and it's going to express itself in a number of different ways.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you can read more about that in my book.
You can read that in the book. And I just want to show everybody that you can get this on Amazon right here. If you have Kindle Unlimited, I believe that comes with Prime, so you can read it for free. But it's available in paperback for $13.25, or if you want to buy it on Kindle without a Prime membership, it's $2.99. And Joanna, so what do you have coming up for the future? Are you planning on writing any more books? Do you have any other projects that you're working on?
Not at the moment. I am very active on social media and trying to get the word out. And of course, I stumbled onto your show, and I just have to say, I can't believe how cutting edge your news is and how up to date. I mean, because I listen to a lot of YouTubers, and I'm, Twitter and Facebook and everything. And if I want to know what's really happening up to date, I know Red Pill 78 is going to have that information. So
thank you so much. I work hard.
I know. Oh, I know you do.
It's a daily grind. I don't really get any days off. I'm taking Christmas Eve and Christmas off, and then my daughter is performing on Saturday. So that's when this is going to air. This will be airing right now while I'm watching my daughter perform. So that's for you people at home. But what about for Christmas, Joanna? Do you have any plans for Christmas?
Very quiet Christmas. I've been nursing my infirm brother for about 5 months. He's living here with me in my home, and he had a heart attack back in July, and he's doing much better. He has an implant now, and he has a pacemaker, and he's doing a lot better. He's going to go home probably between Christmas and New Year's. So we're having a very quiet Christmas with just my daughter and my 9-year-old grandson. And that's it. I like peaceful, quiet Christmases.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
So,
all right, Joanna. Well, tell us, where can people find you on social media?
On Facebook, just my full name, Joanna C. Chestnut. And on Twitter, I'm Burner Turned Trumper. But you just put in at Burner Turned. You know how Twitter is always abbreviating everything.
Yeah.
And I have several groups on Facebook that I administer, and very active and lively discussions there. One is called Awaken Questioning, which is my first one. One's called Small Red Pills. You probably like that one, because I encourage people to just, 1 or 2 sentences, kind of like the way tweets used to be. One or 2 sentences, just say something very plain and simple, and just get it out there. Share it on your timeline, and drop these small red pills for people to see. So that's another one. And then I have Burner Turned Trumper, that I actually spent 13 days in jail for creating that page.
Really?
Oh,
tell us that story.
Oh, yes. Well, I wanted to, after I realized that I was a burner turned trumper, I wanted to publicize it. And so I started the group, and then I asked, I had so many burning, as you can imagine, because burning was very, very much more popular in 2016, I think, than he is now.
Oh, yeah.
And I had lots of burning groups that I was a member of. And so I just, flashed it out to all my groups and friends. And I guess I got reported. I mean, I got so much flack. Oh, goodness, I got so much hate mail about that. How can you, they're so different. You can't be a Trumper when you were a Bernie fan, And I guess several people reported me, so.
But why did they put you in jail for making a Facebook page? Are you talking about Facebook jail? Or
yes.
Okay, I thought you meant you got locked up. I was like, the sweet woman, you put her in jail for making a Facebook page? But even still, just for making a Facebook page, I don't understand. Yeah. I mean, I don't use Facebook.
What happens is you get kicked out. You can't comment. You can't like. You can't participate in any way. You can read posts, but that's all you can do when you're in Facebook jail. So they gave me a sentence.
Okay.
So I'm an ex-con.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Fun, yeah.
Well, Joanna, God bless you, and I'll be praying for your brother and you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much for doing this. I do appreciate it. And what do you want to leave the audience with?
Oh, what do I want to leave the audience with? Please order my book and take a look at it. The paperback is easier to read because I have truth bombs throughout the book, and they just come across a little bit better in the paperback. And I just really appreciate everybody's support, especially yours.
No problem. We'll put the link to the book in the pinned comment of this video. So if anybody wants to, they can just go right through there. And Joanna, make sure that you send me your social media links too, and I'll include those as well.
Okay, sure. Will do.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Joining me in the studio tonight is Craig Mason from Craig Mason's Reasonable Conversation channel. How are you, buddy?
I'm very well. It's great to see you, Red Pill.
Excellent. Glad to have you back, man. It's been a minute.
Oh, yeah, it's been a minute, but the time is flying. I'm feeling good, and I don't think I'm the only one. We were talking beforehand about just how both optimistic, but at the same time realistic we feel. It's good to be able to be both at the same time.
Yeah, I think I feel a little bit of sadness in my heart when I see people who are unable to attain this level of ease and comfiness. I mean, for me, like you, we look at what's taking place, and it's not just we're optimistic for the sake of being optimistic. We're optimistic because we can read the writing on the wall. We see the evidence. We see the drops. Everything that's taken place, this natural progression of events, it's leading us closer and closer to this inevitable conclusion. And, that leaves my heart full and happy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's been a long road, but it seems like it's coming to quite a conclusion this year. I mean, it seems like 2020 has got to be a year of a lot of happenings.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and it's funny because, you've said that, time has seemed to pass both inexorably slow and then also extremely quickly. Like right now, everything's speeding up, and every single day that goes by, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe that it's Christmas right now. It seems like I was blinking yesterday and it was January 1st last year. Like everything that's taken place in between these last 12 months just blows my mind. And you're right. 2020 is going to be a watershed. It's going to be an incredible year. I know it. You know it. And there's nothing that anybody can do to change my mind. And like I said, I wish that people would take an honest look at this stuff and actually, tell themselves, hey, this is real. We have seen all of these watermarks. We have seen all of these placeholders. Everything is coming true. Everything is coming to pass. Somebody just sent me an article about JB, the former head of the Clowns in America, how he weaponized the Clowns in America and the FBI. To think that an article like that is being passed around by just normal everyday people. You go back 5 years, and this is the kind of thing that would get you immediately discredited.
Yeah, the things that seemed like complete crazy conspiracy nonsense years ago are commonly accepted. Even the idea of the DS, the small group of elites who were controlling everything, they're not in control anymore. I think we know who's in control now.
Yeah.
It seemed like such a crazy idea. I remember talking to friends and family when I first discovered a certain program that was inclined to conspiracies that turned out to be controlled by, if you look at QPost 1871, you can see exactly how it works. And, you know, the idea was true. A lot of the ideas therein were true, but it was to gatekeep us from the real ideas, which we have learned so much. I thought I knew so much then about how many conspiracies there were that people said were totally crazy. And now it seems a magnitude of 100 times crazier as to how much they've controlled and how much they've taken over and how much they've conspired. And it's accepted. You can feel the Overton window, you know, the idea that there's a certain window of topics on each side of someone might call extreme beyond that you're allowed to talk about and not be labeled a lunatic. And it has just shifted an incredible amount since the beginning of Trump's presidency, since this movement has started. And I think its whole purpose is to get that to shift to where the point where people go, wow, these people are incredibly sick and demented. And whether or not they say, oh, these crazy conspiracy guys were right or not, I don't really care. But they're going to say, oh, yeah. And there's a quote, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but basically people vehemently deny the truth when it seems crazy. And then all of a sudden they act like they knew it all along, which is fine. Right. I don't even care. I just want these people to be exposed for the sickness they've caused in society. And I think we're coming to that point where people go, yeah, these people are sick and they can't be a part of our society. I'm not trying to be vengeful here and say, oh, you know, they need to be punished. I think they do to prevent this from happening again. But I do want to have fair trials. I think that's necessary. If we want to live in a society of rules and law where nobody is above it, then we have to have fair trials. And that's coming to a point where people are going to demand it. And they're going to say, no more of this.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned earlier about, you know, just getting people to understand. I never got involved in doing this, you know, to become a personality or have people listen to me. I just wanted my voice to be heard and to help people understand exactly what was going on. And, you know, now that we're here at that point, it's as the same thing. I'm not vengeful. I want the restoration of law in this country. I want to be able to know that we're playing by the same rules. And until, you know, basically right now, we haven't been playing by the same rules. We've been playing with a different set of rules than the people who are holding the power. You know, getting back to the conversation of, you know, things that are being said, President Trump is on the offense right now. The things that he's out there saying, he is dropping more truth bombs than I've heard in a very long time. He's always had good stuff. You know, his Twitter feed is always gold. But, you know, he's talking about the fact that they tried to overthrow him. He's talking about crooked cops. He's talking about people like Comey and Brennan breaking the law. And this is a huge deal to have these people who are heading up these intelligence agencies, some of the most powerful agencies in our country, to have wielded that type of power against the citizens of the United States. And for that to be revealed, I never, ever thought that I would see this day. I'm elated.
Oh, yeah. And it's becoming more and more obvious to everyone. And it seems like there's now a divergence between the We Are the News Now people and the mainstream legacy media. Before, if you were to have an alternative perspective, it kind of would be debatable with what the mainstream media would say, and you would search on Google and people would see things and it would seem like, oh, this is an interesting counterpoint. But an example I was reading on one of the boards was the letter Trump sent to Nancy Pelosi in regards to impeachment.
Yes. And
someone said, oh, I first, because my wife wasn't interested in this, she thinks I'm crazy. He first read the letter to her and he said, does that seem, you know, semi-reasonable? You might not agree with everything, but does it seem like a semi-reasonable response to what's happening? And she said, yeah. And then he Googled Trump letter impeachment and it came up like Trump's vile letter, what it signifies about his hate and things like this.
Yeah.
And they're diverging from total insanity on one side and then the We Are the News Now network on the other side of going, hey, let's take a quick look at the facts if you're interested. Let's think about what makes sense here, and let's compare that to what the mainstream is talking about, the controlled mainstream, and why is it always so far removed from reality? Why is this so crazy? And it's becoming way too obvious.
Yeah, especially now with the speed that information flows. You made the point earlier about how we are the news now. That applies, in my opinion, as well to all of us, to everybody who's out there sharing information, making posts, making videos, whatever it is, however you are putting the information out there. We have replaced the mainstream media, and the truth is going to get out there. We were never intended to have this much information, this much actual truthful knowledge. And now, when the mainstream media says something, it can be fact-checked in a heartbeat. And they've gotten to the point where they are absolutely freaking out about the fact that we have more information than they are willing to give us. And everything that they put out has got some type of just really distorted spin on it. And you can take a look at it. President Trump's letter, immediately, you can go look it up and you can see this is a very reasonable man. This is someone who cares about the country. This is someone who cares about the agenda of moving our country forward. And yet, everybody on the other side of the aisle is only concerned with removing him from power. What possible, logical reason could they have to want to remove him from power when he's clearly done so much good for the country? Everything that's happened since he's come into office has been a positive. I can think of maybe one or two things that I didn't necessarily like, but when you take it and its total sum, he's done an amazing job, an incredible job. And for these people on the other side of the aisle to state that they want to remove him, they hate him so much, you have to know that there is some deep-seated reason. And I believe, obviously, that it is their own self-preservation, because they can see the writing on the wall as well. They see what we are doing. They see what the media has become. They see who the new media is, and they know that their tenuous grasp on power is only going to be held for a very short time.
Yeah, their grasp it's so tenuous because as the drop I always come back to, I feel like I talk about this endlessly, and I always come back to this one statement, which is public awakening is their greatest fear. That is how they hold on to their power. It requires us to believe total nonsense. It requires us to be blind, so we stumble around and can't see and trip on ourselves and fight with each other. It requires that for their power to stay, because if that goes away, then it all becomes too obvious. We outnumber them 100,000 to 1, and they can't have this power if we see what's really going on. That it's just, when I question, because the reason I got to this point about thinking in the world in this way is because I would question the mainstream narrative. And so I question the narrative that we think now, because people call us crazy all the time. And I think, well, am I crazy? Let's look at what's going on here. Could this just be some kind of operation to get us to go along with Trump when he's a DS asset too? A lot of people say that. And I think, well, the thing about that is, I always come back to, is public awakening is their greatest fear. Why would we be able to see why would he be learning that even that fact in itself, which is so powerful, to look and research and think for ourselves and have a movement that has an anonymous leader training us to think for ourselves and training us about human psychology? Why would we be learning that if that was the case? Because if we all learn that, if this movement continues to grow, and you can see it growing, you can feel it growing, if it continues to grow, they are totally, for lack of a better phrase, totally screwed. And I see it growing. I spend most of my time in talking about this on the internet and in places like this, but it also bleeds over into my personal life. And I was thinking about how I've seen change in people around me and what they think. My mom and dad were a little skeptical. They've always been very conservative. I've been fortunate in that regards. And my mom kind of thought, it's actually, I think it's happening. She's always been, a little bit black-pilled and doubtful about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. She's just been rock solid, understanding what's going on. My dad the other day said to me, for the first time, he always thought this was totally crazy. He said, I think it really might be happening. Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. And it's crazy. And people say, I was talking to someone else who said, what's going on with this impeachment? I Googled it and nothing made sense. And I saw a guy in Costco the other day wearing a Trump hat. He said, I like your hat, brother. And he said, oh, thanks. And then I said, it's happening. He said, oh, yeah. So it's just crazy what keeps changing. It's just, the awakening is happening. This movement's growing. You saw someone on Fox News say 10%. It's being covered on Fox News. Yep. It's just, it's crazy how much it's growing. And this is, as you said, it's a watershed moment this year. And the proofs, I feel like we're in the waterfall of proof stage. The proofs are just endless the last 2 weeks, just constant, like undeniable. I mean, it's been undeniable for, a year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
But it's undeniable at this point, and it just seems like this movement cannot be stopped at this point. short of like the Earth just being hit by an asteroid.
Yeah, I don't feel that's going to happen.
No, I don't either.
To your point about people stating that, this is all just some LARP to, make us follow blindly in Trump's footsteps, the argument doesn't make sense when you, like you said, when you realize that they are teaching us to think for ourselves. That's counterintuitive to the idea that they would like to control us. I mean, how can they control us if we are able to so quickly outthink them in the exact same way that we have now outthought the mainstream media and the old power structure? Even if it is, it's not going to last for them for long, because we're all going to find out. We're going to continue to do this stuff. Nobody's going to stop researching. Nobody's going to stop looking and seeking the truth. So we would so quickly be able to take them over, and that's not what's happening. I mean, this is clearly President Trump actually doing what he says, and our favorite Anon is a major part of helping us to get to where we have been today. It's an incredible thing to watch, and I really wish that everybody could be at the same point that we are, looking at the stage that's been set and the movie that's about to start, and be comfortable in knowing that there are more things that are going to happen. I know that there's a large contingency of people who are not going to believe it fully until they see that first arrest, the first person doing the perp walk and wearing handcuffs, or a press conference at the DOJ and the Connecticut, John Durham doing a press conference in Connecticut. But I mean, as soon as that happens, I really do think that the shift, the mental shift at that point is going to be seismic, because then I don't think there will be anything that they'll have to refute what's going on.
Oh yeah, I don't think they will have anything. In fact, there's that drop I always think back of. It's the raw vid HRC 55+++ or whatever it says. Yeah. It's undeniable. And that is going to be a situation where, what are they going to say when you Google something? What is going to be there? Is it going to say this is fake? In fact, did you see that tweet from Bette Midler that was a few? Oh yeah, it's if you can pull it, I don't know if you can pull it up, but it's probably maybe like 4 or 5 tweets down. But basically, the short story is that she's saying, this is in all caps too, by the way, it's totally deranged. And she's saying, there's a lot of fake things. Russian bots are on the internet 24/7, and they are trying to confuse you. There will be a lot of fake evidence about bad things coming up. It may be best not to take a look. Take everything with a grain of salt. And it's like, wow, you are obviously, and literally, like Q says, those who screamed the loudest, she's literally screaming in all caps. And when this evidence comes out, Trump always talks, I don't know if you've noticed at the rally, you probably heard this, at the rallies, he always tells the story about how he was talking to someone in the military, and he said, "Sir, we were low on ammunition." And he said, "I don't want to ever hear those words again." And I think he may be also referring to the fact that they have saved up so much ammunition for this point. Mm-hmm. That they've made the D party, they made the DS party use all of their ammunition with all of the fake outs, all of the it's going to happen now. Disinformation is necessary. Think game theory. They've used up so much ammunition. And think about, when I think what's going to happen in 2020, what's this going to be like? I think they have so much ammunition. It is absurd the level of ammunition they have. Hugh has alluded to the fact that they have texts from agents referring to the potential assassinations and all of the other dirty FISA details, all of the Epstein files, all of the Wiener laptop files. Tons and tons of stuff, and he says we have it all. The Seth Rich situation, just endless things that are just going to come out that no one can deny, because they think that we're stupid, but they always project, and these people are stupid. They think that we are just all a bunch of mouth-breathing sheep who will buy anything they say, and we're a little bit smarter than they thought. And generally, people are smart enough, especially when it comes to obvious things. And also, it has been said that most people are good. I think it's beyond most people. I think 95, whatever, high 90% of people want to simply get along with people and not fight. And when they see this abhorrent evidence, they'll say, "Oh, this is absurd. These people cannot go on like this."
Yeah, the percentage of people who are like true psychopaths and sociopaths, I mean, maybe 5 to 10%. And I think that a lot of people have been pretty, well abused by people like that. And so there's definitely some people who have some psychological damage and emotional, societal damage from those types of experiences. But I think that once they realize that the reign of those people is over, that they can be safe without having to act out like that, I think that'll make a big difference in society. And once we see that first arrest take place, then it's going to be incontrovertible. Everyone will know exactly what happened. I was trying to think, what are they going to do with that? We were talking about it over the weekend on the Christmas shows. Is it going to be a press conference? Are they going to do like a big data dump? Here's a bunch of evidence to go along with it. The stuff about the assassinations, that's a great one. I'm sure there's a lot more text messages. John Durham just subpoenaed all of John Brennan's emails and communications. That's going to be huge. What kind of stuff do you think they're going to show up in there?
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. They have everything, all of their back channel communications. It's got to be just a treasure trove of total deception and criminality. They never thought she would lose. They thought they had these secret back channel email channels. They had whoever it was, the top exec in NK, North Korea, setting up systems there, and they never thought they'd get caught. They just thought they could say whatever they want. Look at the text messages between Lisa, Lisa the lover, lover Pete. Every time I love Peter. That. I realize I can't. Yeah, it's just the best part. It really gets me excited for what's happening. Yeah. And but you mentioned a minute ago about some people have been traumatized and it's made them not trust the world, essentially. I think that is a big part of what they've done to the whole of society. They have us they control the schools, they control the media, and I think they want us to be in a constant state of trauma, stuck in trauma. When animals have a traumatic experience, they know how to get it off. They shake and they deal with it, and they just get us in these rigid desks in schools, and they sit us there and they keep us traumatized with the media. And it keeps us in a constant state of fight or flight, so we can never calm down and take a look what's really going on. And I'm sure you've experienced, I'm sure everyone watching this has experienced when they've talked to someone. I know I've experienced it myself when I would get more heated in these debates, but we would be talking about these things, and it would be a debate, and people would get heated, these concepts, and they would get into a state of fight or flight. You've seen these videos of these videos, they're interesting to see, but I think you can see an underlying primal situation with people when they get triggered and they're freaking out and melting down and yelling and screaming. They are in a state of fight or flight. They're scared for their lives, because to believe dangerous things in the old times, believe outside ideas, was literally dangerous. And it gets people, you're going against the tribal leaders, you're going against the current zeitgeist that's safe, and that is scary. And they want us to be in that state, because if you're in that state, literally your brain up here, your prefrontal cortex basically shuts down. It's your logical thinking part of your brain. Yeah. And they don't want us thinking logically. They want us to just run on instinct and our hindbrain and just be mad, be angry, be fighting with each other so they can all control us. And that is, I think, once we get through this next year, I think that's going to be a huge thing for people to realize, is just how much their brains have been controlled in terms of being in a constant state of anxiety by these people. I've dealt with these things personally, and as you deal with them more, you feel less anxiety. And just to think how much anxiety I felt in the past versus what I do now, and think to do that to a whole population, that is so, by design, is so sick.
Absolutely. And it's not just with all of the information they're giving us, but I tend to think that there are electromagnetic waves that are being broadcast all around us that are not healthy. Probably stuff in the food. It's a multi-pronged attack from a lot of different directions. So I'm really, really hoping that that's something that's going to be addressed. I don't even need them to say anything about it. I want to know that it's happening behind the scenes, that these things are going to get cleaned up. We're asking people this week, Craig, what are you thankful for the most right now? And what are you looking forwards to in 2020? We both said we thought it's going to be a big year. I'd like to hear what kind of thoughts you have about what is coming up.
Well, I'm extremely thankful that it feels like the world is going towards a place where we value dealing in reality. It just seemed like, they call these people on the boards autists. I feel like I have a bit of an autist brain where I just I've always fixated on, well, does that make sense? Is this logical? I always liked math in school. I'm an accountant by trade. And I'm just thankful that people are starting to care about that and consider things, and consider what is actually necessary to make a society more peaceful and prosperous, both on a macro level and a micro level. I think people are, I'm thankful for relationships I have, both online, the community of people I've met here. I heard you guys talking about that last night, and I was thinking, yeah, it's so awesome that we have this community of people that we can talk to about these things. I lost so many friends in 2016, like really close, dear friends that they always knew I tended to have more conservative / libertarian values, and it was all fine until this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to have a network of people again, like you, like everyone in this movement that we can talk to about these things. It just feels like I'm grateful for the Great Awakening that seems like it's bringing people together, both in terms of their vision of how the world works, and also just putting aside a bunch of the BS that they want us to fight about. And it seems like we're coming together.
Yeah.
And for 2020, I think it's just going to be, just completely constant pelting of ammunition of red pills,
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. Reports coming out, details coming out. Even it seems like over the last few years that, like with the Strzok and Page text and the whole Pfizer thing, we get a little detail here and there. They just somehow get released. And I think it's just going to be just a ramp up towards October. October, surprise, Red October. I think it's going to just be a complete endless barrage of reality checks for the whole world. And there was an interview, I don't know if it was Sarah Carter or someone else. It was one of the good sources I heard on Fox a month or two ago. I think this may have been pointed to in the drops.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, someone asked, are there going to be indictments? One of the indictments going to be like all at once? What's going to happen? It's just going to be, they said it would be, I think they maybe even used the word waterfall, but it was just an endless spaced drop of drops of indictments and arrests over and over again through 2020. And I think it will be, I heard you guys talking about who could be first last night.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not going to try and predict who it's going to be, but I think it'll be someone that's, kind of universally not that liked very much. Like you mentioned Soros, that would make sense. Or perhaps Brennan, he doesn't seem that liked. But I think it'll be one of these people that it's like, if you're not paying attention, you might even know really who George Soros is if you're really not paying attention, but who can really defend the guy?
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll be someone like that. And it will also probably be some lower level people like, I don't know, Strzok or Page. Probably Strzok, because it seems like Page is cooperating. And just like we set up this precedent with Manafort and who else did they get? All these people from Trump that they got on these low level nonsense. And they're going to be able to point back and say, look what you got him for. And this guy was basically staging a coup. So you want to talk about like, it's unfair. Oh, you're getting your political enemies arresting. Yeah, let's talk about that because you've done it like 10,000 times worse. Mm-hmm. And this is an actual crime. We're getting him on whatever, overthrow of government, treason, etc. You can look at the evidence. It's all stone cold right there. And it's just, I think 2020 is going to be a year of reality checks for people in a good way. Q says, here comes the pain. It's painful to see these things, but the pain kills the pain.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that there's any other way to do it other than to just, let it flow, because we've got let's do the math. Okay. If we can get, if we've got 30 days in a month times 11 months, let's say, okay, so 330 days in between now and the election. And I know that that's not exact. And we've got 120,000 indictments, I believe.
130, yeah.
130? Okay, so 130,000 divided by 330. That's about 394 arrests per day if they try to stretch it out over the course of the next 11 months.
Wow, that is crazy to think about.
That is crazy to think about. I realize that probably not all of those, no, I guess maybe they all would be arrests because it would only be sealed if it was serious. I mean, they're not going to do a sealed indictment for somebody who's, facing a misdemeanor charge or something like that. I mean, these are all going to be felonies. This is going to be real high-level criminal actions that these people are going to get taken down for. And they're going to have to stretch it out somehow. And the only way to do that is if they do it in chunks, I mean, I suppose they could. I mean, how many, FBI federal law enforcement officers do they have that can even go out and do these arrests? You know, I mean, who's going to be the one doing them? They only have so many people that could even do it on a daily basis, you know, so they might have to do some kind of like a sting operation where they get everyone to come to like an event or something like that, like a Hillary for America 2020 event, and then they just arrest everybody there.
Free spirit cooking dinner this way. Yeah, they're going to keep them busy for sure over the coming years. And I wonder if they'll get them all out before the election, or I wonder if, you know, when they start arresting people, that people are all up in a backlash and they try and do to stop it. They're going to try and stage riots. It seems like they've used all their ammunition on that. But they're going to try and push back as best they can because these people are literally fighting for their lives. And there's going to be the narrative that this is people going after political opponents, as we were told over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I really am looking forward to the debates to see how Trump handles this, because I think it's going to be, it should be happening a lot of it by then. Certainly people will be accusing him of attacking his political opponents. And I think this election will end up being essentially a referendum on, do you want to prosecute these disgusting crimes?
Yes.
Or if you don't, then vote for whatever terrible candidate the Democrats put up, who's going to say, oh no, this is just political pandering to your base because you want to arrest a bunch of very, very bad, disgusting criminals.
I think that's a great way to put it. I hadn't thought about it like that before, you know, but if President Trump wanted to make that argument on the campaign trail, I think it would be pretty compelling. You know, I think that they're going to have to do like very public addresses with each of these, you know, each high-level person, you know, maybe not so much with people who are underlings, but I think they're going to have to do a major press conference, just like they did with Jeffrey back in SDNU or SDNY, and like, you know, lay out the charges. You know, they've got a big whiteboard with all of the charges written on it and cue cards that they can swap in and out, showing exactly who was victimized and in what way. Because it has to be shown to the American public. They have to be made aware of why it is that these people are being arrested. And I think that by that time, they will have, you know, very compelling cases put together for public consumption. You know, I would imagine there'd be big press releases from the DOJ, probably sent around to every major media outlet. That will be very interesting at that time, too, to see if the mainstream media is willing to cover this stuff, or if they attempt to go ahead and shove it under the rug, or just simply spin it and say that President Trump is trying to arrest his political opponents. But if he was on a debate stage with Joe Biden and Joe Biden got led off in handcuffs, like while they were broadcasting on CNN, that would be a moment.
Wow, yeah, that would be quite a moment. I don't think Trump would have the optics of that, but that would be great. Maybe like a week or two after he gets reelected.
There you go.
But yeah. But I was thinking, I had a thought about that, but I just lost it. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes down. And I think that, in regards to the media, mm-hmm. you know, are they going to cover this or not? Do you remember when Trump said around just after the last election, he said the New York Times will endorse me in 2020. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, why would Trump say something that crazy? And I think there's going to be a situation where these big companies have to make a choice, which is, are we going down in flames, or will they be given a choice, like some people are given a choice to come clean? And if they weren't of the worst criminals, then maybe they will be able to fire the worst ones and then right the ship and say, okay, yeah, we fired the bad guys, we were wrong, we still have this great infrastructure. The New York Times, you know, they probably write great articles on stuff like food and, I don't know, New York theater, who knows?
Yes.
I mean, who knows what they do? I don't read it, but they probably get the weather right. They probably have good infrastructure for that. And so they can jettison the bad ones and say, okay, we were wrong, we got a new editorial board, and now we endorse Trump. And these big companies, you know, Trump doesn't want to see people out of jobs. It's just probably just like the FBI and the DOJ. A lot of the people who aren't at the top levels, you know, the guy doing the sports writing for the New York Times, they're probably good guys, and they don't want to lose their livelihood. So if you can keep the infrastructure and jettison the bad ones, I think that we'll see a lot of turnarounds from them, and you'll probably see a whole big shift. But they can't. I mean, it's just going to be too crazy to keep going with it. They will just go straight out of business. It's like total suicide if they do that.
Yeah, you know, I'd really like to take a look at their numbers and see how things have progressed for them since 2016. Because, I mean, obviously, you know, we keep hearing that CNN is hemorrhaging the viewers. and they're losing market share because they're getting kicked out of airports. How much longer do you think that a place like CNN can survive with their current business model? I mean, the closer we get to this stuff being revealed, it's going to look like they are just absolutely insane if they are unable to admit what's taking place. I mean, they already look crazy to me, but it'll be a lot worse.
Yeah, it'll become obvious, I think, to almost everybody in America unless they're totally lost. But I don't think it's possible for them to survive at the current rate. It would take a total come to Jesus moment and say, we were wrong. We're firing the people who made this happen. Mm-hmm. And we're getting whoever the CEO there is, we're getting rid of him. I don't know if you saw that Project Veritas video. It's very good.
Yes.
Where they say inside that they're just trying to basically take down Trump.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to have to be a total change in how this works. And I don't know if that's just more peer-to-peer news as we have today, where I think that's what's going to take in the next election, because people will be going to both videos like this and outlets like this wherever they can find them if they don't shut us down, which I think they probably will at some point on at least this platform you're probably watching this on.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, they'll probably try and shut down as much as they can, whatever power they have. I don't know if they have any power left, but then it's just going to be up to the people to say, when someone who's still buying the craziness, which I think by then, if you look at Trump's poll numbers over the last 2.5 years, it continues to just slowly climb and climb and climb. And I think it's going to keep going in that way. Everyone knows someone who doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome, unless you just live in like the most insular place in Manhattan or something like that. And there will just be such a network of people that when they arrest someone like, say, Podesta or someone like that, there's going to be someone there to say, are you kidding me? You think that guy shouldn't be arrested? Look, let me show you on my phone here 1,000 images of what he has in his house and all of these connections he has and all of the evidence that has come out by then. There's going to be too much. And most people are going to go, whoa, okay. I don't know what to say to that. Like, they might not turn on the spot and say, I love Donald Trump, but that will be a shock to people. And, I'm not alleging anyone did anything. I'm saying everyone should get fair trials. There should be no kangaroo courts, but the evidence when it comes out will be too much for most people to bear. And the network of people that are available now, whether and the thing that's also funny is that, this movement, whether you know about it or not, it is the news narratives of the alternative platforms are coalescing generally. So you may not know about that at all, but people are talking, whether you know about it or not, about the FISA situation. People are going to be talking about the arrests that happened. It doesn't matter if you know about that specifically or not, as long as you see that there is a total bunch of lies being fed to us, and there are very corrupt people who have taken over the government in order to keep you and I and everyone else in this country not as prosperous and peaceful as we could be for their own benefit. That's becoming too obvious for everyone, whether you know about this movement or not.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how the financial sector shapes up after this all goes down, too. Because, the financial strangulation of the American public has been a huge part of their plan. Wealth continues to be transferred, up and up and up, and just siphoning from the bottom of the heap. People in the middle have only thrived because of the changes that President Trump has made, the tax cuts and, the economic gains that the country has made. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done. Now, everybody deserves to make however much money as they can go ahead and make. But when the American public is being squeezed in such a way that they are just bleeding us dry for, goods and services, things that we have to have, quite often, I've in my own life, I've had to decide, am I gonna eat this week, or am I gonna pay the bills? That's just the way that it is. And I think that if we were honest with the way that the monetary system works, and what a bad deal that is for the American taxpayer, then we could come up with something else. Do you think President Trump is going to directly address our monetary system?
Oh yeah, that's a topic that I could talk about endless strange connections to what's going on for a very long time. It is so interesting, and it's I think that is being set up for the second term of his presidency. I think what's happening now is people are being red-pilled to the fact that, it's very interesting that a guy that seems like he's the first president looking out for us becomes president. And then all of a sudden, real wages go up significantly for the first time in decades. And we start getting new trade deals. And then all of a sudden, the economy's booming when people were talking about, we had this boom and bust cycle endlessly. people are getting red pilled to that, and I think people are looking at the back of their dollar bill and realizing that that's some strange symbols they have on there. That's strange. There's a little owl in the corner of the $1 bill. That's very odd, and they seem to have all the same symbols. So that will be happening over the course of, it's happening now. I think it will continue to happen. As far as the plans Trump has for the future, in terms of the monetary system, the first question someone asked to the Anon that we follow here. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Okay, yeah, okay. To Q is, the first question someone asked that he answered, the first thing he said about the Fed generally is, someone asked, this was during one of his spontaneous Q&A, someone asked, Federal Reserve ending? Because if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of the Federal Reserve, it's a terrible, corrupt system. It's at the root of how they control us, because they can print money and give it to their friends. And they can control the boom and bust cycles with the interest rates, and they keep us scrambling. That's a whole rabbit hole. If you haven't gone down, it's very interesting and very corrupt. And so someone asked Q, Federal Reserve ending. And he simply said one word, which is structure. And that was very confusing to me at the time. But the more I've researched about it, the more I've realized, you can't get rid of the current structure of the banking system without causing mass chaos. In fact, just last week, maybe it was the week before, no, it was last week, there was an outage at the Fed, and it caused a lot of direct deposits to be late. And that was just one little outage, and it caused a little bit of chaos. So if we got rid of that entire, people say, end the Fed, well, it's getting rid of some infrastructure that's necessary for the banking system to work. If anybody that's worked in any kind of business, or seen the financials of any kind of business, to make the salary that everyone makes, there are just so many transactions of, buying parts and paying off vendors and paying for your insurance and paying for utilities. Just money is constantly changing hands, and it's necessary to be happening on a regular basis. I mean, that's kind of how capitalism is, just this strange, beautiful free market thing that everyone's just buying these weird little things that come together and make beautiful products and services. It requires this massive structure to happen. And so we need a new structure before that old structure is going away. That's what I think Q was saying there. What will that new structure be? Well, Q's also said gold shall destroy Fed. So I think it will be certainly a gold-backed something, probably a gold-backed dollar. Trump has signaled that we will keep the dollar. And I don't think he said gold back, but he's appointed someone on the board of the Fed that is very pro-gold. Just recently, I can't remember her name, but that's on there. And there's people, people talk about Bitcoin as well. And, it's very strange what's happened with that, because Trump said, I don't like Bitcoin. This was probably over the summer, I think. He said, I don't like Bitcoin. It's based on nothing. And he is right in that what people call Bitcoin today, what you see the price of Bitcoin, $6,000, $7,000, whatever it is, that is totally based on nothing. It appears, it's not financial advice, of course, totally based on nothing, a total Ponzi scheme. It was taken over by the deep state. They came in there and they installed their puppets, and they made it so it didn't work. And now I don't know if the new structure will be Bitcoin. I do know that because there is another version of Bitcoin called Bitcoin Satoshi Vision that keeps the same vision of the original Bitcoin, that does scale for a worldwide population. You could have a structure of a US dollar on the system. And what people don't understand about Bitcoin, the main thing, if I were to say, what do people need to know about Bitcoin? It's one thing. Bitcoin is not a digital currency. I mean, it is, but its point is not that it's a digital currency. Its point is that it provides a system to allow peer-to-peer transactions that can be grown to serve the world. It's a system first and foremost. You can run a US dollar in the system. It could provide a platform by which you could run the banking structure. I don't think we're going to be using Bitcoins to buy groceries anytime in the next 10 or 20 or maybe 30 or maybe not 100 years, but you could build the US dollar on Bitcoin. Bitcoin provides a structure on which you could build a financial system. I don't know if it's going to be the case, but I can tell you that there are some very interesting, people call them Q proofs. I don't think anyone proves it, and there's some they tend to prove it, but there's some very interesting bits of Q lore that go down that rabbit hole. I'm working on making a video about it, but
cool.
There's some people this guy Craig Wright, who I have an interview with in my channel.
Yep.
They smear. Have you heard of Craig Wright?
Yeah. Because we talked about him before, and people either like Craig Wright and believe that he is Satoshi, or they just absolutely hate him and they malign him.
And
they
it's
don't
so
believe him.
much Yeah, it's so much like Trump. It's they call it Craig Derangement syndrome, Aussie man bad. He's Australian, and he is. I've talked to him. I've listened to a lot of what he says. He is just a classic autist. He's just so focused on thinking about what makes sense, and he is so maligned because I think he probably is Satoshi. He certainly knows what he's talking about. I don't know how people would think he is. I don't know how he would know so much about Bitcoin if he wasn't instrumental in creating it. He's also worked with the NSA. There's a business card that floats around where he worked with the NSA, and it has the NSA logo on there. And so he said, I've worked with government. He has a lot of connections back to that. Q said patriots, foreign and domestic. And he certainly seems like a patriot that they've maligned. I don't know what's going to happen, but the other interesting thing is if you followed Bitcoin, it all seems like it's coming to a head now. Just in 2020, he says he's going to move his coins in 2020. It all seems like it's blowing up in 2020. It's scaling in 2020. There's more transactions on Bitcoin SV than there are any other currency now, as far as I know. That's at least the big ones anyway. And it actually scales to work for the world, unlike the other ones. And there's a lot of connections there. I'll work on. I have some on Twitter, but I'll work on getting a video together. I'm working on a video for that, but. It is very interesting how this could be providing a new structure, but I've kind of strayed quite far from your original question.
No, I like it.
Yeah. As far as what's going to happen to the monetary system, Q has signaled gold, Trump has signaled dollar, and we need a new structure before we can get rid of the Fed. Certainly, I'm sure Trump knows there's problems with the Fed, but he's put people in there who must be patriots because they have so much power, and Q has said that the Fed's going to try and raise interest rates to stymie the economy. And I'm sure they were good actors. People thought, oh, Jerome Powell's a banker. And I'm sure, they acted their part. They raised interest rates a little bit, and then Trump talked tough. And now you just keep seeing the stock market go up.
Yep.
And, they manipulated the stock market before Trump. They had the plunge protection team that the Fed's balance sheet keeps growing. And now they're talking about QE4, and that's fine. I'm not saying that, it's good they have the system, but Trump's giving, instead of taking all of the new money and giving it to his pals, he's said so much. Just search stock market and Trump on Twitter, or use advanced search and search stock market under Trump's tweets. And it's like every 2 weeks, new highs. Stock market's going to keep going up, constant, because where do people keep their savings? It's all in your 401ks. He always talks about it at the rallies. Oh, my wife thinks I'm a genius. He talks about people saying, they think I'm a financial genius. All I do is invest in my 401k. He's signaling the stock market will keep going up because the stock market is, a share of stock denominated in dollars, yes, but a share of Coca-Cola is, or a share of Costco, let's say, you're not buying a piece of fiat. You're buying a piece of a business that is dealing in goods and services. Their assets are their systems, their stores, their inventory. That never goes out of style in a time of inflation. And that is where Trump is pumping the inflation into, I believe. I can't read his mind, but it seems like, where is all this money being printed going? And why are we not having a crash in the economy? He's just printing, push the stock market up, and I think it will just be endless. This is not financial advice, but I'm in the stock market since Trump was doing it. When before I was just all gold and silver, they're going to crash the economy, and Trump's not going to let that happen. He has patriots in control everywhere.
Craig, do you also help people manage their money in the stock market in addition to helping with their balance sheets?
No, I don't. No. I'm not an investment advisor. I just count the beans. I don't say where the beans should go.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, listen, we are approaching the end of our time that we had scheduled. So what do you want to leave people with here? What is the most important thing to think of and remember in 2020?
I don't know what the most important thing to think of is, but I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and just know that it is, this is going to be a tough battle, but we are there to be the calm during and after the storm. And convincing someone what's happening in one session doesn't usually happen. But if you're there to be a sounding board, to be calm and to listen and to point to the evidence when it happens, I think that is what Q wants us to do. I think that is what makes the most logical sense to do. And I hope everyone is feeling as good as it seems like you and I are, that it's happening. I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Absolutely. All right, Craig. Well, thank you so much for joining us once again. I say logic and reason in 2020, and never lose sight of where we're going and where we've been. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thanks, Red Pill.
God bless.